The conference room went dead silent when Oliver Thorne told me I did not understand enterprise-level architecture. This was my architecture. I had built it from scratch 18 years ago. But there he sat, fresh Yale diploma, probably still smelling like printer toner, earning $310,000 to explain my own security protocols back to me. Human Resources said I needed to accept my level. At 9:20 in the morning on a Tuesday, I sent one email, just one. By 10:15, their entire infrastructure was having what I would call a catastrophic identity crisis. My name is Sean Vance, and for nearly 2 decades, I was the lead systems administrator at Apex Wealth Partners. It was not a flashy title, but I was the person who kept $75 million in daily transactions from disappearing. I stopped ransomware attacks at 3 in the morning while everyone slept and made sure the chief executive officer could brag about 99.9% uptime without understanding what it actually cost. It started 6 weeks before everything fell apart. I was running diagnostics on the email servers when my supervisor Beverly Finch appeared at my office door with that expression people get when they are about to ruin your day, but pretend they are doing you a favor. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, already closing the door behind herself. Beverly had been with Apex for 8 years, managing the department with enthusiastic incompetence. Nice enough person, could not tell a router from a toaster, but her business degree apparently trumped actually knowing how computers worked. "They are bringing someone in above me," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. A director of technology infrastructure. I saved my work carefully because when people add unnecessary management layers, nothing good follows. "What is wrong with our current structure?" I asked. "Nothing is wrong. It is expansion, growth. You know how the executive board loves optimization." Optimization. That word had been floating around our hallways for months. It usually meant someone in a corner office had been to a seminar and discovered buzzwords. "Who is it?" I asked. "Oliver Thorne. He has impressive credentials. Yale School of Management, consultation experience with major firms." She said it like she was reading from a press release. "Consulting on what?" I asked. "What is his actual systems background?" Beverly shifted her weight. "He is more strategic level. Big picture thinking. You will still handle the technical implementation, obviously." That was the translation. He would have opinions about things he did not understand, and I would do the actual work while he took credit. It was a corporate tale as old as time. "What is his salary band?" I asked. "That is not really," Beverly began, then sighed. "He will be classified as senior executive leadership." Senior executive at Apex meant $310,000 minimum. I was making $145,000 after 18 years, 3 infrastructure overhauls, and literally saving the company from a crypto mining attack last year that would have cost millions. But sure, a guy with a fancy degree and big picture thinking deserved more than double my pay. I did not argue. It was not worth it yet. Maybe he would actually know something. Maybe Yale had recently started teaching technology instead of just charging a fortune for networking opportunities. I was an optimist, or at least I tried to be. Oliver Thorne started on a Monday. He showed up in a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage, carrying a leather portfolio that had probably never seen actual paperwork, and wearing a smile that said he had never encountered a problem family money could not fix. The morning all-hands meeting was my first clue that optimism had been a mistake. "I am excited to leverage synergies across our technology ecosystem," Oliver announced. "My vision is establishing robust frameworks for scalable solutions that align with our core strategic initiatives." It was 12 minutes of that. 12 minutes of words that sounded important, but meant absolutely nothing. I watched our junior analyst, Toby, frantically taking notes like Oliver was sharing ancient wisdom instead of just rearranging corporate buzzwords into new, equally meaningless combinations. After the meeting, Oliver scheduled one-on-ones with the department. Mine was at 2 in the afternoon. His office was on the executive floor, already a bad sign. Good leadership stays near their team, near the server rooms, near the actual work. The executive floor meant he saw himself as management first, technology a distant second. "Scene, great to connect," Oliver said, gesturing at a chair. "Walk me through your current responsibilities," he said, pulling out a notepad. like he was about to document my job. The job I had been doing since before he learned to tie his own shoes. I gave him the overview: server maintenance, security protocols, database optimization, backup systems, disaster recovery, network monitoring, patch management and compliance. The invisible work that kept everything running. He nodded along, his pen moving across the paper. "And how do you prioritize these various work streams?" he asked. "Based on what is actually critical," I replied. "Security threats get immediate attention. System stability is constant. Everything else fits around that." "Interesting," Oliver said. "In my experience with enterprise-level operations, we typically utilize a more structured framework. Kanban boards, agile sprints, that kind of systematic approach. I had been using ticket systems and priority queues since before Agile became a corporate religion. Our current system works efficiently," I said instead. "I am sure it has been adequate," Oliver said, in that tone that made adequate sound like a failure. "But there is always room for optimization. That is actually what they brought me in for. Elevating our operations to true enterprise standards. True enterprise standards. We were managing infrastructure for a financial services company handling billions in assets. If we were not already at enterprise standards, our clients would have left years ago. But Oliver was just getting started. Over the next 3 weeks, he scheduled meetings. So many meetings, strategic planning sessions where we discussed optimizing our optimization strategies. Through it all, the actual work still fell to me. When the database cluster started showing latency issues, I was the one diagnosing and fixing it at midnight. When the virtual private network connections got unstable, I rebuilt the configuration. Oliver's contribution was asking if we had identified the root cause paradigm. Oliver's first move was bringing in a consultant friend from Yale for a technology audit. The friend spent 2 weeks asking basic questions, costing Apex $55,000. The final report was a 60-page slide deck that said exactly what I had been telling Beverly for 3 years for free. Oliver presented it to the board as strategic foresight, and Beverly nodded along like he had discovered fire. Meanwhile, keeping the business online fell on my shoulders. When the database cluster showed latency issues on a Thursday, threatening transactions, I sat in my home office at midnight, analyzing query logs, optimizing indexes, and restarting threads to ensure the morning trade run went through. Oliver's contribution was sending an email at 9 the next morning, asking if we had identified the root cause paradigm and suggesting a 3-hour meeting. The breaking point came 5 weeks after Oliver started. Our legacy transaction database needed an urgent security update. A critical vulnerability had been published, and hackers were actively exploiting it. I tested the patch in our development environment and scheduled the deployment for Saturday night, when transaction volume was practically zero. On Friday afternoon, Oliver called me to his office, leaning back in his leather chair. "About this weekend's update," Oliver began. "I have reviewed your proposed action, and I have some concerns." I had sent him the complete technical documentation on Tuesday. I would bet my next paycheck he had not opened the file. "What concerns?" I asked. "The methodology feels reactive rather than proactive," he said. "We should be thinking about this systematically, not just applying patches." "It is a critical security patch for an active exploit," I explained. "The vulnerability has been public for 2 weeks, and we are already exposed." "Right, but what is the strategic framework?" Oliver asked, tapping his pen. "How does this align with our broader technology roadmap?" I took a slow breath. "The framework is keeping our clients' financial data from being stolen. The alignment is not getting hacked." Oliver's expression tightened. He did not like being challenged, especially by someone who actually possessed deep systems knowledge. "I think you are missing in the bigger picture here, Sean. This is exactly the kind of tunnel vision that holds organizations back. You are so focused on the technical weeds that you are not seeing the strategic forest." The technical weeds, the weeds that kept his email working and his paychecks from bouncing. "What would you suggest instead?" I asked. "A comprehensive review," Oliver said. "We should bring in stakeholders from compliance, accounting, and client relations, assess the full impact scope, and develop a phased implementation strategy with proper governance oversight. We can schedule the kickoff meeting for next month." "Next month," I said, staring at him. This vulnerability is being actively exploited right now. If we wait, we could lose everything before we even finish the kickoff meeting. Then we will implement additional monitoring safeguards in the interim," he said dismissively. He had no idea how these systems operated. Monitoring does not stop a hacker. It just lets you watch yourself get robbed. But he was the director, and I was just the systems administrator. I went back to my desk and made a decision. I did the update Saturday night anyway. I did not ask for permission, I just did my job. By Sunday morning, the database was secure. Transaction flows were normal, and nothing was broken. It was shocking, considering I had only been doing this for 18 years. Monday morning, Oliver found out. Not because anything went wrong, but because I had logged the patch in the system change log. He called me to his office at 9 sharp. Beverly was already there, looking nervous, and next to her sat Miriam Cole from Human Resources. Miriam had a thick folder on her lap. That was when I knew this was going to be an official disciplinary meeting. "We need to discuss your unauthorized actions this weekend," Oliver started, his voice heavy with forced disappointment. "The security patch," I said. "It was fully documented. I sent you the deployment plan last Tuesday, which I explicitly told you to hold pending further review," Oliver snapped. "You suggested a review," I replied. I documented in writing why that delay would leave our database vulnerable, and I proceeded with the update to protect our assets. The entire communication history is in the email thread, and the change log. Oliver's jaw tightened. The issue is not the technical outcome. It is your failure to follow the proper chain of command and respect leadership decisions. The chain of command does not override my professional obligation to secure the systems," I said. "If a pipe is bursting, you do not wait for a committee meeting to turn off the water." "This is exactly the problem," Oliver interrupted. "You do not get to decide what is critical. That is not your role. You are a systems administrator, Sean, not a director. You need to accept your level and work within it, accepting your level. 18 years of being the only person who understood how these systems connected. 18 years of late-night emergency calls, weekend updates, and stopping disasters before anyone else even knew they were coming. Accept my level." Miriam Cole leaned forward, offering a practiced, sympathetic smile. "Sean, I think what Oliver is trying to say is that structure exists for a reason. When we bring in leadership with Oliver's credentials, it is important to trust their strategic guidance." "What credentials?" I asked, the words coming out before I could stop them. "What systems has he actually administered? What database has he ever built?" Oliver's face turned red. "I have a Master of Business Administration from Yale and years of technology consulting experience with major firms." "Consulting about what?" I asked. "Making slides about synergy. Have you ever actually stopped a database outage, recovered from a ransomware attack, rebuilt a corrupted file system at 4 in the morning so that payroll could run? Because if you do not do those things, 400 people do not get paid." This is exactly the kind of insubordination. Oliver started, but I cut him off. "I am not being insubordinate. I am asking what technical qualifications justify paying you more than double my salary to overrule my security decisions with business school buzzwords." The room went completely silent. Miriam Cole cleared her throat, shifting her folder. "Sean, I understand you feel undervalued," she said, "but this disrespect toward leadership is unacceptable. Oliver's compensation reflects his role at the strategic level, while I am just the technical help who does the actual work," I said. "That is a reductive way to look at it," Miriam replied. "Different roles have different compensation bands based on scope of responsibility, educational background, and market positioning. He has an Ivy League degree. I had 18 years of keeping this company's technology alive, but the board cared more about credentials." Oliver stood up, adjusting his suit jacket in a power move. "I think we are done here," Oliver said. "Sean, consider this a formal warning. Any future failure to follow directives will result in escalated disciplinary actions, up to and including termination. Miriam will document this conversation." I looked at Miriam, who was already writing in her folder, then at Beverly, who refused to make eye contact. I stood up and walked out. I went back to my office, closed the door, and sat at my desk. On my desk was a photo of Clara and the kids, Julian and Chloe, from our camping trip. Toby, our junior systems analyst, knocked on my door a bit later. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked quietly. I heard raised voices. Everything is fine, I lied. Just strategic alignment discussions. He winced. Oliver has been asking me to document all your daily tasks. He said something about capturing institutional knowledge and reducing key person dependencies. Is that normal? They were planning to replace me. Of course they were. Oliver could not have someone around who actually knew what they were doing and could expose his incompetence. It was easier to push me out, hire someone cheaper who would not question his vision, and hope the systems ran on the momentum I had built. Yes, I told Toby. It is totally normal. That night, I went home to our house in the suburbs. I did not mention any of it to Clara immediately. She was dealing with her own work stress, managing budget cuts at the local hospital where she worked. Julian was complaining about his biology project, and Chloe needed help with her math homework. It felt like a completely different universe from the one where I was being systematically pushed aside. Wednesday morning, Oliver sent an email announcing a technology reorganization initiative. It was filled with corporate jargon, but the core was simple. He was hiring 2 junior administrators to report to him, and my role was being refocused on legacy system maintenance. It was the polite way of saying I would be babysitting old servers in a corner, while he brought in people who would do exactly what they were told. The new hires started the following Monday. Fiona and Simon were fresh out of college with computer science degrees and absolutely zero real-world experience. They were enthusiastic and friendly, but completely out of their depth. Oliver had them reporting to him directly, bypassing me. I was supposed to provide guidance, but all decisions went through Oliver now. Within 3 days, Simon misconfigured the server backup system. I noticed it during my routine checks. The incremental backups had not actually run in 72 hours. If a server had crashed during that window, we would have lost 3 days of transaction history. I fixed it quietly, not wanting to make a big deal out of it. Simon was a good kid, just inexperienced, and he was working for a director who could not tell him he had made a mistake, because Oliver did not know what a properly configured backup looked like. The next week, Fiona made an even bigger mistake. She granted database access to the wrong user group, allowing employees in marketing to view client financial records. It was a massive compliance violation that could have cost Apex our financial license. I caught it during a security audit, immediately revoked the permissions, and sent a polite email to Fiona explaining the security protocols. An hour later, Oliver called me into his office. "Stop undermining my team," Oliver said without preamble. "I am not undermining anyone," I replied. "I am preventing critical compliance violations. You are making them second-guess their decisions," he said. "They need space to learn and grow without you constantly looking over their shoulders. They need guidance from someone who knows what they are doing," I said. "These are not small mistakes, Oliver. Simon's backup failure could have lost 3 days of data. Fiona's permission error violated federal financial regulations. Everyone makes mistakes," he said, leaning back. "That is how they learn, not with systems that handle $75 million in daily transactions," I said. "You do not learn by accidentally exposing client financial data or losing critical backups." Oliver leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Here's what I think is really happening, Sean. You are threatened by change. You have been the only systems person here for so long that you have built this little kingdom, and now you cannot handle sharing responsibility. I am trying to prevent disasters that you are not qualified to see coming," I said. "And there it is again," Oliver said, a cold smile appearing on his face. "You just cannot help yourself. You cannot accept that someone with actual leadership training and strategic vision might know better than you. About technology, no, they do not," I said. His expression went ice cold. "You are on very thin ice, Sean. I have been patient, but attitude and culture fit count. Right now, you are showing me you cannot adapt. I should have backed down and played the corporate game, but I was exhausted." "What is your background with database permission structures?" I asked. "Excuse me," Oliver said. "Before you lecture me about database decisions, I am curious about your experience. What databases have you personally managed?" "I do not need to personally configure systems to understand strategic data management," he said. "That is a no then," I replied. "What about backup systems? Have you ever personally implemented and maintained a backup infrastructure? My expertise is leadership and vision, he said, his voice rising. Also a no. Security protocols, incident response, disaster recovery. Have you done any of the technical work that your title claims you are directing? Oliver stood up, pointing at the door. Get out of my office. Happy to, I said, standing up. Let me know when you want to discuss actual technology instead of just strategic visions. I went home that night and told Clara everything. We sat on the back porch after Julian and Chloe had gone to bed. So this guy is making more than double your salary to do essentially nothing, Clara asked, holding her cup of tea. Worse than nothing, I said. He is actively making things harder and taking credit for my work. Can you go over his head? She asked. Talk to the chief technology officer. The chief technology officer, Duncan Forbes, is the one who hired him, I explained. Oliver has the right credentials on paper, the Yale degree, the consulting background. He says all the right corporate things. I am just the person who has been keeping the systems running. Guess who looks better in board meetings? Clara was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? She asked. That was the question. I was 42 years old, and while starting over was not impossible, it was not simple either. I had spent 18 years building the technology infrastructure at Apex. Walking away meant watching it fall apart. I do not know, I admitted. You are really good at what you do, Clara said. Any company would be lucky to have you. Then maybe it is time to start my own consulting business, I said. I had talked about it before as a long-term plan, but maybe the timeline had changed. Friday afternoon, Oliver sent an email announcing that he would be presenting at the quarterly board meeting about transformative technology initiatives. The presentation included several infrastructure improvements that were actually projects I had completed years ago, rebranded with new buzzwords. He was taking credit for my work in writing. I stared at that email for a long time, then decided to prepare my exit. I updated my resume, reached out to old contacts, and started documenting my processes. I also looked at how everything was connected. The automated maintenance scripts, the backup schedules, and the system integrations. I was not planning sabotage. That would be illegal and unethical. I was just planning to leave cleanly. What happened after I left was not my problem. The final straw came 3 weeks later. Our email server started having intermittent slowdowns on a Tuesday morning. It was annoying but not critical. I started diagnostics immediately and found the issue within 20 minutes. One of the server nodes had a memory leak in a third-party plugin. The fix was simple. Disable the plugin, apply the patch, and monitor the node. I was implementing the fix when Oliver appeared at my desk. What is the status of the email issue? He asked. Mere leak in a node, I replied. I am patching it now, and it should be resolved in about 30 minutes. I need you to stop, Oliver said. I looked up. Stop. I am bringing in an outside consultant to assess the issue, Oliver announced. We need a professional evaluation before we make changes. I am a professional, I said. I have managed these email servers for 15 years. An objective third-party professional, Oliver corrected. Someone who can give us an unbiased strategic assessment. It is a memory leak, I said. It is straightforward troubleshooting. The email server was starting to queue messages now, and a small delay was turning into a company-wide bottleneck. Oliver, we need to stabilize the system now, I urged. I can do a deeper analysis afterward. No, you will wait for the consultant, he said. That is a directive. He walked away. I sat there watching the message queue grow and did nothing because I had been given a direct order by the director. The consultant, a man named Pierce, showed up 5 hours later. By then, the outage had disrupted the entire company. Pierce charged $300 an hour. He asked me to walk him through the system, and I showed him the diagnostics and the patch I had prepared. Yes, that looks correct, Pierce said after 15 minutes. Disable the plugin and apply the patch. It was exactly what I had said 5 hours ago. I implemented the patch while Pierce watched and nodded. The email system stabilized, and Pierce wrote an invoice for $1,500. Oliver sent a company-wide email praising Pierce's expert analysis with no mention of my work. That night I told Clara I was done. I am going to practice malicious compliance, I said. No more working late. No more checking servers on weekends. No more catching other people's mistakes. Strictly 9 to 5, exactly my job description, the cracks showed within days. Simon misconfigured a firewall rule that blocked a vendor portal, and because I was not checking logs in the evening, it stayed blocked until the next morning. Fiona forgot to renew a security certificate, causing our client login page to throw warnings. Oliver called a meeting to address the errors, but I pointed out that I was simply managing my time during business hours as he had instructed. 3 weeks later, Oliver called me to a meeting with Miriam Cole in Human Resources. "We are restructuring your position," Miriam said, sliding a document across the table. "Your role will be refocused on legacy maintenance with a salary reduction of $45,000. That would drop my salary to $100,000. "What if I do not accept?" I asked. "Then we would consider it a voluntary resignation," Miriam said. "Under our severance policy, you would receive 2 weeks of pay per year of service. That would be 36 weeks of severance, plus your 4 weeks of accrued vacation, 40 weeks of pay. It was enough to launch my consulting business. I will take the severance," I said. "And I would like to make today my last day." Miriam blinked. "Today, we expected a 2-week transition. The severance agreement does not require it," I said. By 10 in the morning on Monday, my office was empty. I signed the paperwork, handed over my laptop and access badge, and walked out of the building at 9:55. I walked out of Apex Wealth Partners at 9:55 in the morning. I loaded the boxes of my personal items into the trunk of my car, got in, and took a deep breath. I felt lighter than I had in years. I drove to a local coffee shop, ordered an expensive drink, and sat by the window. My phone buzzed at 10:45. It was Toby Scene. "I am really sorry to bother you," Toby said, his voice trembling with panic. "But the database is slowing down. Transactions are timing out, and the main dashboard is showing red alerts. I do not know how to log in to fix it." "Did you check the admin dashboard?" I asked. "Oliver is trying to log in, but he does not have credentials," Toby said. "He is the director," I replied. "He should have his own access. Rochelle was supposed to set it up, but she did not," Toby said. "Can you just tell me the password?" "I do not work there anymore, Toby," I said. "I cannot give database credentials to someone who is no longer authorized." "But it is an emergency," Toby pleaded. "Then Oliver should contact security and follow the recovery protocol," I said. I hung up. At 11:05, Beverly called. "Sean, we have a crisis," she said. "The entire system is collapsing. I need you to help us log in." "I signed my severance an hour ago, Beverly," I replied. "I have no employment relationship with Apex, and I cannot provide technical support." "We will pay you," she said. "Just tell us how to fix it. Have Oliver email me a consulting proposal with a scope and budget," I said, and hung up. At 11:50, Oliver himself called. "Sean, this is extremely unprofessional," he barked. "The entire infrastructure is down. If we determine that you sabotaged our systems, we will sue you for damages." "I did not sabotage anything," I said calmly. "My credentials were deactivated when I was terminated. Under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, specifically, Title 18, United States Code, Section 1030, accessing your systems without authorization is a federal crime. Since you revoked my credentials, I cannot legally touch those servers without a signed consulting agreement that explicitly grants me authorization. I will not commit a federal crime to help you." There was a long silence, and then Oliver hung up. At 2 in the afternoon, Duncan Forbes, the chief technology officer, called my personal number. "Sean, I apologize for how the reorganization was handled," he said. "We need your help immediately. We are prepared to pay premium rates. I will draft a consulting proposal," I said. I emailed it to him at 3 in the afternoon. My rate was $600 per hour, with a 30-hour minimum engagement, and 50% of the total, which was $9,000, paid upfront before I would log in. Duncan called me back within 10 minutes. "This is a very high rate, Sean. It is the standard rate for emergency restoration of custom infrastructure," I replied. "You can hire another consultant, but they will spend weeks trying to understand what I built." The signed contract was returned by 4:30, and the payment hit my bank account shortly after. I started my work as a consultant on Friday at 2 in the afternoon. I worked 38 hours over the weekend, diagnosing the issues. The database was slow because my user account, which ran the automated maintenance scripts, had been deactivated, and no one had updated the scripts. The systems had simply choked on their own temporary files and unindexed tables. I updated the automated scripts to run under a new system account, stabilized the database, and cleaned up the queues. I also wrote detailed documentation for every step of the process. I did not do it for Oliver, but to give Toby a fighting chance. My final invoice was $22,800. On Monday morning, I met with Duncan and Oliver. The systems are stable, I said, sliding the checklists across the table. Follow these steps, and you will be fine. Duncan cleared his throat. Sean, we would like to bring you back. We can offer you a 30% raise over your previous salary. That would be $188,500. I looked at Oliver, who looked miserable. No, I said. I have already lined up 3 consulting clients. I will make more working for myself. Duncan asked if there was any number that would change my mind. You would have to match Oliver's salary, I said. $310,000, with the same executive benefits, and Oliver would report to me. That is not realistic, Duncan said. I know, I said. That is the point. You cannot value expertise only when it is gone. I walked out of Apex for the last time. Within 6 months, my consulting business was earning an annual rate of $240,000. By the end of the year, it was $290,000. I worked from home, had time for Clara, and never missed Julian's baseball games or Chloe's school events. Toby reached out to me 3 months later. Oliver had been fired after 6 weeks when the board realized he had no technical skills and had cost the company thousands in downtime. Simon and Fiona had left for junior roles elsewhere. The company had to rebuild the IT department, and their quarterly earnings report mentioned major technology infrastructure costs that hit their stock price. Successes is the best revenge, but walking away from people who do not value you and building something of your own is even better. Refuse to accept less than you are worth.